A very special thank you to Lexus, who is our presenter sponsor, our new presenter and sponsor. And actually, I feel kind of parched. Fiji Water is sponsoring tonight's event. Well, that's good water. And thank you to the Manitou Fund. Thank you to Nora McNeely, Michael Hurley, and Manitou Fund, the board of directors of the Santa Barbara Film Festival. I have, besides having Timothée Chalamet on stage tonight, I have a very special treat for you guys. The moderator this evening is none other than a really good friend of the film festival, an Academy Award nominator actor. He's brilliant. I love this man. And this year, he released an autobiography that all of you need to read. It's called From Under the Truck, an incredible biography that he wrote himself. Please give a warm welcome to Academy Award nominee Josh Brolin. Oh my God. And he smells so good.
He said earlier that I smelled like a whore. See the difference? There's professional and there's personal. I want to say thank you. No. So try not to make it all about you. Timothée Chalamet. I'll start off reading what I wrote about 15 minutes ago. First of all, welcome to the Arlington Theater, which is a theater that first opened on May 22nd, 1931. It has always been the largest theater in Los Angeles. It's going into its 94th year. This is not a joke. Stop laughing. And today, we're going to spend our time in this historic theater celebrating a 29-year-old anomalous actor who has already shown us through his work what historical monuments are made of. People, places, and things that move us again and again and somehow find themselves in our cellular makeup and don't ever want to let us go. Impact. It's all about the impact without ever instigating that impact with intention. With great artists, the impact comes from those works of art that they consume in themselves for personal reasons, and then we find ourselves drawn to their work because of that. We see it in their eyes, in the movement, in their restraint. They see art in life, and they live that art. You think of great performances you've experienced through the years that ultimately bring you here tonight, whether it's Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice, James Dean in Giant, Leo DiCaprio in Gilbert Grape, or the great Shelley Duvall in A Place in the Sun. There are so few that are great, but so few stay with us like a milestone in our lives, a dream that maybe happened to us or a horror that we cringe at, but secretly love to recall. Timothée Chalamet is being honored here at Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Their 40th year. Timothée is 29. He was born in 1995. My own film, The Goonies, premiered here at the Arlington Theater in 1985. That's 10 years before honoree Timothée Chalamet was born. 10 years before he was born, I was 7 years old. That was 1975, 20 years before Timothée Chalamet was born. Why do I mention this? because when we did Dune, it was the first time I had ever been called old man. His teacher, his mentor. So who better than me to give this little brat an honor that he so proudly, profoundly deserves? Well, in true mentor fashion, keeping him grounded as we sail through the trajectory of what is his career so far. Josh Brolin is perfect for the job, so here I am. So before I bring him out, I want to go down a list of films and performances that we will be talking about for the time that we are here. Call Me by Your Name. Lady Bird. Beautiful Boy. Little Women. Don't Look Up. Oh, man, what's the matter with you? The King. Wonka. Bones and All. Dune Part 1. Dune Part 2. That was pretty equal. And of course, his brilliant and impossible performance in A Complete Unknown as the great Bob Dylan. And to that performance, I say, fucking A, bro. A great motion picture is a beautiful thing to watch, but if you don't care about the character inside the story, the personality that propels the story, then you are dead in the water, no matter how good it looks, no matter how wonderful it sounds, no matter how wonderfully written that script is. It's the subtlety of the performance that makes you identify with his or her words and actions or dilemmas and wins. Who is it that you're investing in? That is, at the core, what is in a motion picture. Once in a while, and it's not often, someone comes along that has an innate talent nobody understands. It's striking. Timothée Chalamet is that talent of his generation. The first time I saw Timmy was in Beautiful Boy, and I will never forget it. I knew those people. I might have even been a version of that person. So as I was watching, he was doing things only an addict would know. You can't teach someone to do that. You can't explain it to them, because there will always be a tell that they're phony, that they're acting, but there was nothing fake about that performance. Just like there was nothing fake about Leo's performance in Gilbert Grape. One per generation. And if they can stay grounded, if they can continue to hold that work dear, there will be performances to come from this astute young actor that should have us on the edge of our seats for decades to come. Please watch this montage on Timothée Chalamet. So it is my geriatric honor to bring out our multiple Academy Award nominated, multiple BAFTA nominated, multiple Golden Globe, SAG, and every other award nominated friend and cohort, and this year's Arlington Artist of the Year recipient, ladies and gentlemen, Timothée Chalamet.
Come over here.
Over there.
Thank you, man. That was so sweet. That was so sweet.
I love it, man.
Thank you, man. So, I wrote a little speech, I guess.
No, you wrote a little speech, but I think you
Oh, it's
Yeah,
later.
that's for later.
Okay, my apologies.
By the way, everybody in the audience works here.
Okay.
So if you need any information, they
know
can
where to
give it
go.
you.
Hey, man, thank you for doing that, Josh.
Is there alcohol in that drink?
Yes, there is. I thought it'd be more interesting for everyone if.
Who's the one sober person in the thing? I really am. Hey, man, I'm so honored and happy to do this. I mean, I'm so freaking excited just to be able to sit here and rap with you about your fucking career.
Man, thank you, man. And that was those words were beautiful. The last part was very moving to me. The parts where you were ribbing me, not so much, calling me a brat, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Got to keep it real.
yes, that was the trippiest montage too, with like Wonka to Bob Dylan. You know, Willy Wonka spinning around a thing. Anyway, thank you, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
This is my brother, right? This is my brother/father figure, you know?
Otherwise known as the old man.
Yes.
I'm kind of leaving it on you and make it awkward for a second, but I'll get it going. Look, before we go into a thing, first of all, you look amazing.
Hey,
You always look amazing.
this was your idea to dress like this.
I know, and thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to do it too, but I would never do that. But it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. You know, I left my walker at home.
Oh, man, someone online, please generate Josh in this look, please.
Yeah. Well, look, this is the truth, is that I went down the craziest rabbit hole, YouTube rabbit hole in the last, it kind of, yeah, right? You too? Yeah. Because you're inundated by it because things are happening for you right now. So the algorithm suggests Timothée Chalamet often. Corey Feldman's next, but you're on top. And the great thing about that is suddenly...
The alcohol makes me want to make a joke, but I'm not going to make it.
No,
I'm not
don't
gonna
do
make
it. I'm sober. I can do it. I can do it. No, but truthfully, what's come out a lot are these performances that you did, which I had no idea existed in high school, right? And usually, at least I have my own, you know, like I had Guys and Dolls and I did a little part and it just wasn't good. Your shit is super good. So can you talk a little bit about, just before we get into clips and all that, about growing up in a family that I know had ties in the theater and all that kind of stuff, and then what that was like once you got into high school and started kind of figuring out what it is that you couldn't help but do?
Well said. You know, I grew up in a performing arts family in New York City. My mother went to performing arts high school. You know, my family's a big believer in public education, and I'm really a product of, you know, public arts education in New York. It's the truth. That's not, that's just the truth. I wouldn't have the career. I debate about this with my high school drama teacher, Harry Schiffman, who says to me, you know, you would have found your way to acting regardless. I don't know if that's really true. You know, the drama and acting came into my life really young, 13, 14 years old. You know, I used to be jealous of athletes who would go to these specialized high schools, or soccer players or basketball players who could play all day. And my father would tell me it was the privilege of my life that I wasn't stuck with a ball all day. He meant it in seriousness, you know, that I had the opportunity to go to school, but going to LaGuardia ended up being my version of that, where half the day you could skirt your way through the academics, and then the other half we were, you know, I was going extremely hard. And I feel like raising kids in New York is sort of like a flip of the coin, because I saw, you know, a lot of people err by way of their opportunity to make choices for themselves. That could be drugs, that could be, you know, bad decisions. So that really just put a hyper charge on me to focus. And not to sound corny, but I also had some awareness that in my teenage years, I'm like, it's now or never, in a sense. I could see already in acting how gigs would go to people who had a little bit of a career already. You know, Brian, my manager who's here, had to give me hey, Brian crowd, man. No, but he had, you know, as many many a call where, you know, you lose out on a gig because someone just has more momentum or something. So I really was hyper focused on not only getting my career going, but getting the reps in. You've done a lot of theater in New York, Philip Seymour Hoffman. So I wanted to get my reps in. For me, that was theater, and it was high school drama, you know.
How did you feel when you walked on stage for the first time? When you had, I mean, was it a small part? Was it a scene that you had to do? What?
Yeah, you know, at LaGuardia, your freshman year, you do 5 to 6 minute scenes. Your junior year, you're doing stretch scenes, you're doing Shakespeare, and sophomore year, you're pushing it a little bit. But for me, it was a play called After Ashley. I'm trying to think what else I did my freshman year. But, you know, you push outside the box a little bit. But I fell in love with it immediately. You know, I joke about this, but I really went to LaGuardia because my sister was already there. And it seemed like she would come home with these stories about it just didn't sound like school, essentially. And I went not knowing what it was, you know, the first week of drama class and people bringing in special objects and crying over one another. And I was dumbfounded by it, but I found a real mode of expression. You know, a quote I live and die by these days is sometimes your need to say something is greater than what you have to say. That's not to say that you're a dumb actor or ignorant or anything. But that's why I admire Bob Dylan or these great lyricists or artists that generate the work. Maybe one day I'll generate the work. Maybe one day I'll write something great. But for now, I bring life to. And LaGuardia gave me that path because I had so much cooking when I was a teenager, like many people do. But I had so much to get out. And I felt like I found something I was good at in life. And you grow up in New York and you're really growing up like in a pressure cooker. And you're like, and I don't want to live, you know, I wanted something greater for myself. You know, they say don't get into acting if you want to have a better life for yourself, you know, but man, I got this fancy green shirt on now. So, you know, fucking A. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll ask you this one thing, and then we'll start to get into some clips. But what if you?
I'm gonna push the envelope with Josh. I'm gonna like at some point he's gonna leap across and choke me or something.
It's inevitable. So when people come up and they ask me, because I'm older, but I know they ask you now. They go, "Hey, I want to be an actor. What advice could you give me?" What do you say?
Do theater. Somebody asked me that outside just now. Do theater. You know, especially in this day and age, I could tell you what not to do, just in my totally out of touch point of view, but it would be to say, like, find your superpower and stick with it. No one's going to incentivize you in life to figure out what your superpower is. And that doesn't mean that anybody's a villain. It just means they couldn't know how to unlock what your inner superpower is. All of a sudden, I sound like a self-help person, but, you know, I feel like, but I was steadfast in that. You know, I've been thinking about going back to LaGuardia, and people go to conservatory. It's not to throw shade at any great conservatory teachers, but the idea of spending thousands of dollars on an acting school when a lot of my favorite actors, you know, didn't. I don't know. I feel like you just have to find it for yourself and find the opportunity to do reps, to do laps, you know, to get the workout in. And that's theater. Once you do something great on stage, then you could pull it back. And not to be shady in any way, but if you go see shows on Broadway or whatever, you can see the people that can hang on screen and they can't hang on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and when you have that dialogue with people, I find the film kind of goes over their eyes, because they want to hear that what they really want to know is how to be famous and have a lot of Instagram followers or something.
Yeah. And I hope, you know, that in a day and age that, as you just said, incentivizes something else, that we'll still have great artists. That is to say that people still throw themselves in the pursuit of the arts when it's just as easy to, let me not make any shady joke there. Never mind.
Well, you're that guy, man. You know, I bet, and now I'm already over. But the thing is that when I met you, not knowing that you had this past, even though I had seen you in a couple of roles, I mean, you were like a young adolescent basset hound when I met you. It was on the set of Dune. You walked in the trailer and you were like, "Hey, man, wow. Like, what do I do, man? It's so good to meet you. And you hugged me like 30 or 40 times. And we had a mutual friend that we talked about. And to see you in this trajectory become not only a man, but there's no arrogance, there's no ego. You work your ass off. You do wear the green shirts, but fuck it. I mean, if that's what you're gonna do, you know what I mean? If like that's where it's gonna come out, let it come out. And I'll stick with my classic pinstripe. But you're a great fucking role model, man. You're a great role model.
I appreciate it. Wait, and I'll just say one thing, you know, when I met you on Dune, I was nervous because you had made Sicario with Denis prior, and you guys had a brotherhood already, and I knew I was stepping into something that, you know, I remember one of our first conversations too, you had said something cryptic about, you were just very cryptic about, like, just not fucking my life up, and, but said in a very cryptic way, and, you know, also, I don't know if you remember this, but when I shot Dune, I was shooting The French Dispatch right before, and my end date kept getting pushed on that. So I arrived in Hungary with not as much time as I thought I would before the first part of Dune. And my first day was a fight rehearsal with Josh for that training scene. And I got an errant call sheet. I really did, you know. And Josh got there at 5 a.m. and I got there at 11 or something. And Denis killed me, man. Like, do you remember this? Anyway, maybe let's not get into this. But it was a whole. I felt I wanted the brotherhood with you and with Denis because I did have such humility and honestly nerves jumping into something after Sicario and after the collaboration you guys had done, and also as a younger man with Dune on my shoulders and not wanting to fuck it up, you know. And just what I talked about there, just feeling like I was coming in with not a lot of time to get ready.
Yeah, but you were at an age where you had to do that, and then we slapped you, and then you didn't do it again.
But the truth is, and Tom Rye, the second AD, if you're watching this, the email said 11 a.m., so I don't know why. It was so brutal to have to explain to Denis, this is the email I got. And he didn't want to see it, you know? And then the thing I got thrown into was a fight.
The rest of us are standing there going like this.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, but I know we got to go into clips and everything, but, you know, this is really a great man. It goes without saying, but Josh is really, and I'm not the first to say it, like, this is really one of the good people in the industry, and I know we'll get into it later, but I was talking this with Edward Norton, who I'm in a complete unknown with, but, you know, Josh will, like, take a very sort of, like, humble and humorous point of view on life and career sometimes, but I think it downplays the legendary, you know, truth of your IMDb and the filmography. And, you know, before if we keep talking about other movies I've been in, I just want to give you your flowers now. So, yeah, there you go.
Thank you for that. I love you, man. All right, let's get into some fucking performance shit. What's this first clip? Call Me By Your Name and Lady Bird. And I would say I saw a movie, which we'll get into later, that first, before Call Me By Your Name, but Call Me By Your Name rocked me. I mean, truly, and your first Academy Award nomination, right? Which I didn't even know until I looked up. I saw that. I was like, no shit, that young? Wow. Call Me By Your Name is an incredible, incredible performance. But let's watch some work from Timothée Chalamet.
Timmy, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud for you to receive the Arlington Artist of the Year at Santa Barbara Film Festival. So well deserved. You deserve everything. It's been a joy of mine to be making things with you, spending time with you, creating with you. You are a partner in crime. The crime is cinema. And you're someone who has always been fierce since I know you when you were very young and completely committed to the art that you so well express, which is not just performance, but of being a filmmaker. You are a great filmmaker. And I'm very, very happy that we've been able to do things together and hopefully do more together. And I salute your incredible career, your amazing year, your performances in both Complete Unknown and Dune Part 2. And I wish I was there to celebrate you with everybody who are right now in front of you. So I cheer you and I love you.
That's Luca.
That's Luca.
Amazing filmmaker. The thing that came up when I was watching it was when you were looking at the fire. And how old were you when you did that?
20.
Wow, 20. So when you're looking at the fire and you're feeling that emotional, and I'm not going to ask you for your secrets or what you were thinking of, but when you saw the movie, because there was no music playing when you were looking at the fire, did he help you? Did Luca help you get into that moment? Or is that something that, no?
No, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was not the original ending of the movie. I think it's something he added in the middle of the shoot. And we did 3 versions of that scene, and one that was less charged than that, one that was more charged than that. And, I feel like what gets lost in that, not the performance, because no one should really care what goes on behind the scenes. But the truth is, I was really lasered in. That is to say, I just done Prodigal Son in New York, which is a play off Broadway. And true to what I was saying earlier, which is why I'm mad I said that Denise story, because I feel like that's going to get misinterpreted. The 11 a.m. story is just I've the work ethic. Look, I think getting to act, you know this better than I do, is a privileged life, no matter how hard you work. But I feel like that gets lost in the cracks sometimes, particularly because I've had a lot of success young, is my work ethic is extremely high. And on a Call Me By Your Name, a movie that can feel sort of romantic and the Italian summer and the countryside, like a scene like that, or for any actor, that feels like gymnastics, I don't know if I'm making sense. That to me is more an expression of where I was able to bring myself that day and less almost where it is in the context of the story, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And does it have anything to do with the trajectory of what where did you shoot that? Toward the end?
Yeah, we did shoot that towards the end.
Toward the end.
Yeah.
So you had this whole relationship, not only with Luca, as a director, as a mentor, a kind of amazing moment that he was having.
Yeah, I had, it was the momentum of the shoot. I had an earpiece that had the song playing, the Sufjan Stevens,
right on.
beautiful
So you
artist.
did have the music.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. That the truth is that movie took such an emotional toll on me, not in a negative way, but it really was like an emotional vomiting of sorts that, in the interim before it came out, it was almost like I was shell-shocked. Again, not in a negative way, but I did Call Me By Your Name, a movie called Hostiles, and then Lady Bird in the span of 4 months. And then I went back to college. And I remember thinking I remember having this, it wasn't my ego, but I was like, man, I feel like I'm doing great work and my career hasn't taken off. And I booked Beautiful Boy around then too. So I was shooting Beautiful Boy and I was doing great scenes in that. And I was like, man, I'm living this weird thing where I know, or I'm confident I'm doing great work, but no one's receiving it yet. And again, I feel like that gets lost, man. Not that I'm on a parade or a path to over-explain myself or to go, woe is me, because I live a very privileged life and I'm very grateful for it. But I feel like the hours put in get lost, I really do. And it's not about the hours that, sometimes the greatest reception to your work is to make it seem effortless or to make it seem like you stumbled into it. but especially on Call Me by Your Name and Beautiful Boy. And A Complete Unknown was like the return to that for me was like, okay, now I've done these huge movies, and through the spirit of Bob Dylan, I want to keep my foot on people's necks.
Get it. You don't want to lose it, but you stay humble. You stay really, I always know you to stay humble. You're always actively looking for that place that can reground you in the work.
Absolutely. And for you know me well, that sort of goes without saying. So if my attitude's coming off any differently right now, you keep me on track. But to me that goes without saying, because I feel like, and as the kids say, being demure or like humble, as you just said, or that's like in my DNA, to be very self-effacing and to hate yourself.
Yeah, hate yourself. Okay. So, and then I'll move on to Lady Bird. But the relationship I was going to say with Luca, and then also with Army, did that affect it? Did you get super close? Forget the sexual aspects of the whole thing. Did you get heartfully taken in with each other just because of the nature of what was going on? Because the intimacies, and again, aside from sexually, the intimacies, the emotional intimacies of some of those relationships when you guys are out in the field. And it's so funny, I didn't have to do research for any of this. Like, I know those movies and they stick in your mind. So it's so funny to listen to you talk about, I'm doing these movies and nobody cares.
Well, in the moment, I just meant that in the moment that my ambition for my career, my ambition as I sit here today, not 30, hoping that this isn't a moment where people look back and go, oh man, then he got hit by a truck the next day, but rather, like I feel like I'm just getting started. So I still feel like this in a lot of ways, but I just meant in that moment, I felt like I was doing a level of work that whatever. And, but to your point, no, I felt like the love in that movie is sort of brotherly. That's kind of how I always approached it, you know?
I got that.
And that's...
But did it feed that moment? What I got from that moment, when I look at that moment, every time I see that clip, I get emotional. And, that just may be you faking it and me being super sensitive. But it works regardless. You may have been thinking about Hawaii for all I know.
No. I mean, yeah, it did, but I guess I keep contextualizing it in career.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to be unlike Bob Dylan and over-explain myself in this moment, it would be to say the momentum of the experience of being on a shoot, of being a lead, of being heralded as an actor, to have a Luca Guadagnino believe in me, to feel that experience coming to an end, knowing I was going to go back to New York. That was the momentum that was feeding the emotion in that scene. If anything, it was less, I feel like that often with acting or storytelling. I feel like that on Dune, too. It's like the catharsis of the experience is as informative as being academic in where you are in the script, which I know is not what you're asking. But...
you seem to be referencing Bob Dylan a lot. Why?
Yeah. We'll get into it, baby.
It's still there. It's still there. Yeah. What about Lady Bird? What about Saoirse? Is that how you pronounce it? Saoirse. I just saw a movie that she did recently. I don't know if you...
Fantastic, yeah. Amazing.
Just amazing.
Incredible.
Blew my mind.
Yeah, incredible.
She's been nominated like 73 times or something.
Exactly.
Crazy. But how is doing work with her? Because I know you worked with her a couple of times.
Saoirse's like a sister to me, and she's a powerhouse. She said it. I'm going to steal the words from her, but we have like very different personalities in real life and also approaches to our work. So we end up being like I think we're like I'm going to sound like a stoner, but like in a lava lamp, like the way it all floats. And, but she's just a beast, and I just love Saoirse. I mean, we met each other at a very unique time in life, and I can't say enough great things about her and Greta. The experience on Lady Bird and Little Women was the same, where I felt like I was slotted in. I don't know how else to put it. And then they're these movies that just sing, and they're wonderful and beautiful, and they're That's the other thing about Greta. When I said that thing, foot on their necks earlier, Greta is like a foot on their necks person. Like, and people don't really know that about her, but she's like, you saw that Uber Eats ad. Like, she's really like, Greta is a genius, and she's also like, how do I say this? Really got her eye on the prize. She's a beast, and people don't really know that about her. She's really like, she's in the metaphorical sense, she's a killer.
Perfect timing. Let's go to the next trailer, which is Beautiful Boy and Little Women. There's a thing that she does that you guys do at the end of the scene where she keeps forcing you to look at her no matter where you're looking. She's going pupil to pupil, and you're avoiding her at that point because you're so desperate, but you realize you're losing. I mean, does that happen on set? Does that happen because you guys know each other? Did you guys work on that scene?
Yeah, that was when we rehearsed once.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm imagining you in that scene now. No, that was a scene we rehearsed once with Greta before the movie started, and then Greta didn't want us to go near it again. And also, kudos to Greta again. She just shot it very loosely. You know, there was one track, and we did a wide, and then I think we did everything around that wide. But I think James Mangold, who's here, like Greta, they're like really actor-friendly directors, which I'm sure you could speak to better than I could. But they just really have performance in mind. I hate that word, performance. It's not performance. It's like, you know, they have the being of the characters in mind. You never have to fight for your space. I'm sure you know that. You don't have to go, hey, man, I got something good here. You know, they really get it. And that scene, to me, is a testament to that. We had like 2 hours with a light. That's all shot in magic hours. So we shot that in like 3 seconds. And, you know, very proud of that.
How many takes did you do of that?
Not a lot, man. That was like 6, probably like 3 or 4 in a wide, and then close-ups. And I think Saoirse had a flight to catch, literally. And that was it, you know.
I didn't want to know that.
That's the fucked up thing about these formats.
That's the fucked up thing.
you know, yeah.
Like, what was she?
Bob
Was she
Dylan
thinking
would
about
say-
her dad, or was she thinking about, well, you know?
Bob Dylan wouldn't say anything here, man.
Bob Dylan never says anything.
I've said more in the last 3 minutes than he ever said
than he
publicly.
said in his life.
Yeah.
Publicly. It's true, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, Beautiful Boy. I just go back to when I saw Beautiful Boy was the first thing I saw. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't understand. I didn't understand. I grew up, unfortunately, nobody can ever understand this. It's kind of like being an actor of what you're saying and regrounding yourself, because the perception of you when you're successful as an actor is that you're walking a perpetual red carpet waving at people, like no matter where you are, even if you're in an alleyway, you know. I love being famous, you know, and that the work of actually getting into it and the nervousness and finding a moment and all that kind of stuff. But I saw so many of those, and they didn't, a few stood out. Like when you were in the cubicle, the bathroom cubicle, I just freaked out. But what did you do? Did you do heroin, or like, what the fuck, man? I mean, it was super weird. Like, I know a lot of those guys, and I know a lot of those guys that didn't make it. And I was watching you, and that's why I mentioned Leo and Gilbert Grape. When you're watching Leo do that thing, there's always a tell. You know, there's very, very few performances that you look and you go, they really think this is happening. Like, this is kind of scary. So was it scary for you? That's the first question.
Yeah, honestly, it was, because the material was very dark. And it honestly was. I don't know how else to put it. I had to shoot in LA. I'd never left New York before, I think, to shoot on a project that long. And I was daunted by the physical challenge of it, losing the weight. And I wasn't an adult yet in many ways. So I was freaked out that a lot of the artists I look up to, when they did great work in their early 20s and they threw themselves into it, that they didn't really emerge the same person. And I didn't want that to happen to me. And Felix Van Groningen was a wonderful director and was very trustworthy and loving with me, but I knew he set that bar very high to lose weight, to just do as much research as possible short of, you know, doing all the drugs. And how else to put it, you know, I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, that's probably the, yeah, I guess I'm proud of all my work, but I'm really, really proud of that movie. And I think at the time you go through this sort of like award season stuff that this year I've been way better able to navigate mentally and just kind of look at it as an extended platform for the release of the movie and not get so wrapped up in it egomaniacally. And I think at that time I was kind of like, because Call Me By Your Name had just come out and I was hoping it would be embraced the same way. And in the years since, even outside tonight, when people come to me and they say, hey, that movie impacted me for X, Y reason, or I went through that, or my father went through that, or I lost a sister to a drug overdose, that to me is like, I know my time, my effort, my body was left in a good place, you know, and that it, I don't want to say made a difference, it sounds corny, but that it was well worth it, because it was freaky doing it. It honestly was a jarring experience, and go to Narcotics Anonymous all the time, and that's the real, you know, people are really dealing with that right as we speak.
It's the hardest thing, yeah. It's the hardest thing to do because there are a lot of people out there who deal with that, and there's a lot of people watching you, waiting for you to fail, you know, and when you represent in a way and you can follow the whole trajectory of that, it's as taxing as it is, it's also truly inspiring, that performance. When Steve Carell, were you involved before Steve Carell?
No, I auditioned for that. He was involved from the jump.
Did you, was there a moment, like Steve Carell has obviously proven himself to be an amazing dramatic actor, but I'm sure I would have gone like, this is the role of a lifetime. What do you mean, Steve Carell? From The Office?
What do you mean?
I probably would have gone, that sucks for me.
For
Like
you?
you're meaning if I did that role and he was playing my father, I didn't know he was a dramatic actor until that he had the capacity.
No, because I think Foxcatcher had come out, and no, I was just stoked.
But it had already come out?
Yeah.
Oh, forget it.
I think so.
Forget the question.
No, I was no.
How can I fuck with Steve Carell?
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Sorry, that wasn't about you. I thought Steve Carell was there for a second.
You guys got some long-standing beef, huh?
No, not at all.
The Brolin-Carell beef has just been reignited.
No, man, you know how talkative I am, and I always see Carell, and Carell's like, hi.
Yeah.
Like that. I think I did something to him at some point that I don't remember, and I may have.
Interesting.
And that's okay with me today.
Interesting.
I can write a book about it, you know? Oh, whatever.
Yeah. You learn something new every day.
I just fucked myself. That's okay. Don't Look Up. And The King, which I have a lot to say about. But Don't Look Up and The King clips right here. Let's look at. First of all, I had a really weird moment just now as I was watching that clip and Joel Edgerton. And then I thought, Call Me By Your Name. And I thought, wow, what if you took that title and put it on that clip? And my whole head just spun for a second. Super dramatic, super good speech. I remember during Dune, was it Dune 2, watching you give a speech, and you were supposed to give it in English, right? And?
In Chicopso.
Chicopso. I forgot what it was called. And Chicopso. And you did it in both, didn't you?
Yeah, the version that made it into the movie is the Chicopso, but we have takes in English, too.
So that's a super difficult speech to give. What do you think when you watch that clip?
This is a very strange night because it's a very interesting exercise to go through these clip by clip. The King is a movie that I'm deeply proud of because I think more than anything, it's where I've thrown myself off a cliff the most. It was the first project I did after the release of Call Me by Your Name, you know. And David Michaud is a fantastic director. I'm glad they picked that clip because I like seeing Joel Edgerton face the great Sean Harris. You know, it was all these kind of grizzled Australian and English actors that had to bend a knee literally to, you know, a 22-year-old New Yorker at the time. And I don't say that with overconfidence. I say that with all the fear that accompanied with me at that time because I thought, what the fuck am I doing out here? You know, I really mean it, you know. And it was just a sort of like Dune 2, where Dune came to me in a moment in life where it felt like circumstance was too big for what I could handle. And The King was really that. And I was gonna make a bad joke, but you know, I'm very proud of the movie. It's another movie where, you know, the most random circumstances in life for people tell me that's their favorite thing I've been able to do, you know, and it's something I go back to and I'm like so fond of because I was entirely out of my comfort zone more than anything I've ever been on.
Yeah, so that's what and I'll admit that I hadn't seen The King and that I watched it. I don't know why I hadn't seen it. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I have young kids. But when I was watching you during Dune 2, I was like, you know, it was another one of those moments that I had, but it was very personal because you and I knew each other well at that point. And I thought, man, this guy, I was thinking of the future. I was like, you're going to give performances because you just can do something.
Man, I hope, Josh. I really hope. And I don't want to beat myself to the punch, but I feel like I'm one of the good guys in the sense that my heart is in the right place. I work my ass off and I want to be one of the greats. I really do, you know? And it's the truth, man. I look at your career, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I look at, you know, Leo is somebody you talked about earlier in the speech you gave. He's somebody who just perception-wise lives a very gilded life, and he keeps handing in amazing performances, increasingly amazing. I thought Killers of the Flower Moon was one of the greatest performances he ever gave ever. So that's like, I really want to be super locked in. That speech I gave in Dune 2 was a relief because the arc of Paul Atreides follows the arc of King Henry in a lot of ways, about a young man. It's almost like The Godfather 2 or something, where somebody has to step into a situation they don't really want to step into. And Dune 1 is almost like a tadpole or something. And I had done The King already. So when I got to do Dune 2, if I get to do Dune Messiah, Messiah would be getting to do what I never did in The King. It would be to tell a story 20 years past what I did in The King. And I'm just hungry, man. I want to keep going.
Do you ever is there a role in your head? Do you have roles in your head that you would love to be able to do or accomplish?
Increasingly, I just talked about this with Brian the other day because we got approached with something. And I feel like, man, I don't want to talk in delusions of grandeur, but, you know, I'm 29. When I turn 30, I'll be closer to 40 than I am 20, which is still very young. Shout out everyone in the room. But, but I feel like the clock is ticking a little bit, and I'm serious. I'm serious, man. No.
I'm gonna fucking kill you after this. I turn 57 tomorrow, motherfucker.
Is it tomorrow, literally? Oh, shit. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Josh. Happy birthday. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Thank you for that. That was really sweet. All right. So sorry, what were you saying?
I'll cut myself off.
Are you going to cut yourself off, really? You're not going to continue? Yeah.
No.
Good.
I told you my first
No.
note was no foot. Don't put your foot in your mouth, and I did.
You know, your knees start to hurt at 29, right?
Well,
Somebody says, hey, how you doing? You can't really look behind you. You know what I mean?
I woke myself up by my own breathing the other day. That freaked me out. It was the sound of my own breathing. That's what woke me up.
Are you looking forward to doing Cocoon 2?
What is Cocoon 1?
Oh,
I'm serious. I'm serious.
I know you're serious. So does everybody else.
What is
I
Cocoon
know.
1?
Cocoon is like one of the great geriatric films of all time, man.
What is it?
Just go fucking watch it.
Okay, all right.
You know? Just, you know, you'll understand what a walker and tennis balls are after that.
Cocoon.
Cocoon, yeah, write it down in your phone.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
There we go. So is there...
What is that?
What? No,
Who directed that?
oh,
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard. Oh
Ron
my
Howard.
God. What was it? What were their names? What was it? Who were the main guys? Oh, fuck. It's so good. Dude, you're going to love it. All right. Look, is there a role? Get back to it. Is there a role? Do you have roles in your head that you would like to do in the future when you're old? Like when you're 31 or whatever.
I'm thinking if I did another biopic, it would be the Josh Brolin biopic, you know? You'd have to tell me what the most interesting years were. But judging on your book, there's a lot of fascinating shit. No, man. Honestly, no. I feel like that's the imperative. Man, it's gonna be hard to segue back into seriousness. But no, I feel increasingly I have to find the things I want to say. Like the thing I got approached with the other day was it's like a very contemporary story about something that just happened in the real world. And I'm just having like the Bob Dylan experience shooting A Complete Unknown was so magical, and it was so how do I say, like visceral. The project I just did, Marty Supreme with Josh Safdie, is so visceral. And I don't want to, you know, I'm joking about the ticking clock, but I'm also not. You know, God forbid I have some genetic thing that will make my head explode or something, you know. I want to keep doing it, you know. Wouldn't it be great if my head just exploded all the time? Tragedy in Santa Barbara.
I think
You'd have blood all over you.
that's it. God, Timothée was great up until 29. Yeah, I think before we get into this next clip, these clips, is that I was just thinking this. You know, you resort to humor when you trust somebody. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I trust your talent. I don't think you can help it. I think you have enough of a grounding and an understanding of what this is. I don't think you did when you were the adolescent basset hound.
Well, I don't think you know, going back to our cryptic conversation we had on Dune 1, I don't think I didn't have it, but it's not that I resent at that period of my life. There's a fantastic producer, I'm not gonna say their name, but on a project I was early on, and she was like weeping in my trailer. And right when my career took off, she was saying, you know, and your life's gonna get fucked up, and you know, and you're gonna lose friends, and it's just gonna be like, you're gonna have 3 friends at the end of this. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you know, it was such a stark, dark, pessimistic, you know, worldview. You know, I have the benefit of seeing where my heroes have fallen, and I hope these clips don't come back to haunt me, you know, but I think my head's on straight. You know, it's the benefit of the curse of the internet is like, you know, at the end of every day, I have a life-size Purell bottle, and then I get in it and I swim in it, and I disinfect.
Great. Love it. There's a great clip that we're going to show that we weren't going to show, but I made them put it in, called Dune Part 1. Bones and all, and Wonka all together, all three. Let's take
Smash
a look.
up.
I mean, could you have 3 different clips and one? No. Gene Wilder, Johnny Depp, and Timothée Chalamet. Pretty great. We used to wait for that movie once a year, and I'm not kidding. Once a year, we had 3 channels in Paso Robles, and we would wait for that movie. And that one time that there was a storm outside, and the movie came, and then it like started, and the credits rolled or whatever in the beginning, and then it went to snow, was like the end of my life. So
Was that your favorite part in the movie, or was there a different part?
no. I'm just saying the movie itself was that meaningful.
But in that movie, what was your favorite part?
Oh, that's good. I don't know if I have one. When he goes through the thing, the original one, when he goes through the top and he floats
At the end.
over the city. Yeah, over the end. Yeah,
Or
at the
Augustus
end.
Gloop going up the tube.
Yeah. I just totally regressed just now. I need a Kleenex. You were phenomenal in that movie. I thought you were phenomenal. Had you ever? Oh, you did sing.
I sang at LaGuardia, but that was a bigger leap to do it in Wonka.
Did you feel confident singing that movie? Not knowing that you were later going to sing in a different way.
No, well, in a complete unknown, the gift is Bob Dylan's voice was so raw, and it was like it sounds like the iron ore from the North Country he's from in Minnesota, and Wonka, I was like, man, now I'm in the league of the wickedly talented Idina Menzel and like Ariana Grande, who I know is just here, and like, fantastic singers. And I wouldn't put myself in that league. I know I'm not in that league because when people have that talent, you hear it and you go, oh my God, this is like a gift from God. So no, I didn't have that confidence.
Yeah, but again, it's like there's not a false moment when you give yourself to it entirely. I always find, that when you give yourself to it, if there's 5% that's holding back and that's kind of self-conscious.
No, it's good they showed those clips in a row because I came off of Bones and All when I shot Wonka, and the tones were so jarringly different. And I think the first week of scenes we did on Wonka, we went back and shot, to your point about tone. I don't think I was explicitly holding back, but my work had been in sort of like very grounded, naturalistic things. And Paul King is really one of the most underrated, or maybe if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, he's properly rated because it says like Citizen Kane and then it says Paddington 2, I think literally. But, Paul King is just, I've been lucky to work with these directors that in their good fortune, their work is their spirit being. The way Denis, his spirit is Dune. That's the book he grew up on. Call Me By Your Name is a version of Luca's youth. And Paddington at Wonka reflects this Paul King worldview that's equally Wes Anderson, as it is Great British Bake Off, as it is just like really sweet and wholesome. And that's not to call the dude that either, because he's got a wickedly talented and dark sense of humor too, so I loved working on Wonka. I love Paul King.
Did you like the lightness of it? Did you like being able to?
I honestly thought that was in some ways more challenging than because if you're in a real, our day to day, it's perhaps easier to tap into your chagrin on another project, to float so light like that in Wonka is it was a whole new thing to learn,
A whole new muscle.
Yeah, or to relearn, to have the freeness I felt in my youth. And, I don't want to say Hollywood is a perception, whatever, like pop culture's got a perception that like dark is cool. That's just forever. That's nothing new. And I felt like Wonka was punk rock in a sense. I don't know if it ever even got understood in that way. It is what it is. But I felt like it was sort of after my early career in Beautiful Boy and Bones and All and Call Me By Your Name and, like fucking a peach and calling me by name and stuff like that, I was like, this to me was punk rock, and the people that get it, they get it, period. Because people love that movie. So, so.
All right, I'm going to go right into this next thing, and then I want to talk about it before we get into it. So the next and last clips are Dune 2 and A Complete Unknown. And the thing about it happened on Dune 1 reshoots, right? Was that it?
What?
Where we all got together and sang?
Oh,
and
yeah, that was the first reshoot.
So that was the first reshoots, and that was 2020?
Yep.
2020. You were already talking about doing this. It was Oscar Isaac playing guitar, you playing guitar, Stephen Henderson just taking it all in, singing also and loving it, and me feeling super uncomfortable. So I took out my phone and I filmed it. But I know Bob. I've known Bob Dylan for a long time. I think he's a little afraid of me now, but I understand that. But to play somebody like that and that's a huge feat. I was going to play George Jones, and I developed the whole thing, and then I pulled out at the last second, and I think that that's part of why I wanted it to be a certain thing. So you hold this thing, you're like, I don't want to do anything else but become this deal, and is there any way to do that? And most biopics don't work. James Mangold has pulled off a miracle, not only with this movie, but Walk the Line. I don't know how he did it. I don't think anybody else has ever done that. 2 biopics, and they are both phenomenal. But when we were doing that, I remember looking at you, and you were way younger. You weren't, I don't know, and it didn't work out that you were able to do the role then, and you ended up doing Dune 2 and then other things and ended up doing the role. It's almost like it was some kind of divine intervention that said, no, not yet, but yes, you're the guy, but not yet. And I don't know if that's things that you went through or you feel like you had kind of landed in this place. Don't answer yet. Let's watch the clips.
Mr. Chalamet, love seeing you fly and make your way, brother. Truly. Let's talk about your Bob Dylan performance in Complete Unknown. Look, from the first scene, in a role that was so ripe for skepticism, in the first scene, you left no doubt. Bob Dylan was yours from frame one. Bob Dylan, the creation, the creative, the trickster, the lone wolf. Without attitude or affectation, your Dylan was no imitation. It was an emulation. Your performance had so much discipline, so much consideration, so much freedom, but always in context. You were the center of attention and exceptional ambiance at the same time. You floated through the story, constantly flirting with the edges without ever digging your heels in. Congratulations. That is not easy. Beautiful performance. Thank you for your talent, your curiosity, and for never asking permission. Just keep living.
Thank you for never asking permission. That was pretty great, wasn't it?
I love that.
Even though it always sounds like he's doing slam poetry.
No, I'll let you go.
Yeah, it was. It was a phenomenal performance. It was an impossible performance, which is what I wrote today. It's, I watched you in Dune. By the way, both these pictures are Academy Award nominated Best Pictures. And you just happened to be the lead in both pictures. And one is a heavy, heavy, heavy weight. And the other is, again, an impossible feat that you somehow pulled off. Your performance in both, I think, are phenomenal. So what I want to ask you, I think first, which lends to the second thing, is the scene, the clip that we just played from Dune, was a special clip not only in what you were doing, but you were surrounded by not only your contemporaries who are at the kind of top of their talent right now, I think. I don't know what that means, but you know what I'm saying. And then veterans like me and Javier and Rebecca, and then legends like, Chris I can call him Chris. Chris. And it's, how was that for you? Just to be in, you've said it, so it's not like I'm asking a hollow question, but did it affect you? Did it make you want to work harder? Did it make you happy that you were in this industry for a moment?
Happy and grateful. I love how you put it. We've talked about it before, but listen, man, how do I say this the best way? For the Dune 2 clip we watched there, as you just said, it's my contemporaries that are at the top of their game. I'm in front of legends. I'm in front of brothers like yourself and Javier. And in the context of that movie, I felt like I finally had the meat to chew on, or the opportunity there to really bring it all home. I don't know how else to put it. A day like that could have so easily felt like, man, I wish I had an opportunity to do great in front of my peers, and I had it in front of me. So I hope that doesn't sound grandiose in the context of a sci-fi movie or something, but to me, it felt like the most important day of my life. And it's not because I feel competitive, but you know, it just, that scene in Dune 2 and also that speech, I felt like, okay, this is why I'm here, you know. And in a lot of ways, that's why Josh Brolin's there and Zendaya's there and Charlotte Rampling, Christopher Walken, and Denis. Most importantly, Denis, is we're I don't want to say elevating because the book is great, but we're legitimizing, you know. We're bringing life to words like Harkonnen or Truthsayer or Chakopsa, but we're believing it 10 million %, which in a lot of ways is more challenging than a biopic or something that actually happened. So that scene we watched, I'm deeply proud of. There were nerves. That's probably the first thing I was feeling, were nerves, but also like pride. And to the contrary of the Call Me By Your Name conversation we were having, I felt that I really, I'm over-explaining. I'm doing a non-Dylan here, over-explaining myself. But I felt the momentum of the previous film. I felt the fact that Oscar Isaac wasn't there. Oscar, who had become a father, I don't want to say father figure, but a mentor figure in a lot of ways. I felt the burden and the joy and the responsibility of having been the one that was there the most, period. And if we do another one, that will be there the most. And that was my moment to ascend. And I don't want to put it more lightly than that, man. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't something we were laughing between takes. That was like an enormous deal for me. And that movie's kick-ass. And I think Denis is probably the best director working right now, or one of the best, you know, so.
And then on to the next one after you have your sip of alcohol. Here, wait, let me prepare too. There's nothing, and I don't say this from a talent point of view, there's nothing Bob Dylan about you. Like, I don't know who would look at you and say, you know what? That little dude should play Bob Dylan. But James Mangold did, because he's a freak. And there's a reporter, a guy who we've talked to many times, Kevin McCarthy, who's a good buddy of mine, texted me after he saw it.
I thought it was Cormac McCarthy.
No,
who texted
not
you that.
Cormac. That's a different dude. Kevin McCarthy, who I love, and I love his taste and all that. And he saw the performance, and he texted me, and he said, I don't know how to even explain what I just saw. And I was like, wow. That coming from him, who sees everything. So it got me really excited to see it. And I felt the same way when I saw it. I didn't see you. I didn't see you. You know, yeah, you maybe gained 20 pounds and all that stuff is like, you know, it becomes these cosmetic necessities, but from an inner life. So I don't want you to over explain it, but like, what did you do? What happened?
Yeah, I couldn't over-explain it because I wouldn't know how to over-explain it. The truth is, as you know, as Stephen Henderson knows, as Oscar Isaac knows, I had 5.5 years to put into this. And I don't want to overstate it, but this might be one of the last times I ever get to talk about it. Man, oh man, like, this was a lifetime's work. And the respect and passion I feel for Bob Dylan and his music was so great that it took me out of myself. There was no need to find a vanity in performance. In fact, it's what threw me the most. If I would watch a take, if I saw myself in it, I would repel. And his legacy, his contribution to this world of arts, his ability to skate through it in a way unlike what we're doing right now, and my admiration for that, my inspiration from it, was so enormous that the movie took on its own life. I don't know how else to explain it. It was sort of like, the way I say it is, God touched Bob Dylan to write his music. If you're a fan of Bob, you know this to be true. If you're not, I invite you to be a fan. And I feel a smudge of that rubbed off on me working on it. And Edward Norton, his dedication to play Pete, Monica to play Joan, Elle, everyone was lasered in, and it was a humble process. This isn't about drugs like Beautiful Boy. It's not about interplanetary warfare like Dune. This is about great thinkers in a period of time when people were open, not like now, where we're beaten down. It's not a joke. Now we're beaten down. Now the stakes are higher and more insurmountable. There, at that time, there was hope, there was optimism, and there was a gap for someone like a Bob Dylan to shine through. And without disrespecting my other performances, stuff that is to come, this was a lifetime's work. This was a spirit being, so, yeah.
Well, it shows, and it's obvious. And, I raised my kid on Dylan. We listened to Dylan, me, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old, all day in the car. My son learned how to speak 36 years ago by listening to Dylan. He knew 30, 40 songs by heart by the time he was 5. And that's the truth. There's no exaggeration to that. So it meant Bob Dylan in this world means everything to me because of what Matthew just said. He was unapologetically, still is, unapologetically himself. And you want to befriend somebody like that. And it's hard to befriend somebody. I called him and said, Bob, I want to drop off my book. And he was like, why?
Is that true?
Pretty much. But he dropped off his, so it's like, what the fuck, man? You know what I mean? And it's just, it's somebody who's just beating to a different drum.
Couldn't say it
in
better.
a different band, in a different world, and we're all getting off on it. And somehow, some way, you tapped into that because you have that in you. Maybe not his, but you share that. And you were somehow able to meld it together. And it's truly a wonder. I'm not going to say the performance of a lifetime, but a fucking bang out performance, man. So part of the person responsible for that performance is a man who is here, who is also nominated for an Academy Award, who's going to come up and say a few words about the man in the green shirt. And so can I introduce the wonderful, amazing director, James Mangold.
Thank you. After watching this rambling Phil Donahue show over here, whatever I fucking wrote is out the window. But Josh, thank you, because actually the conversation is really interesting and a beautiful reflection of who Timothée is. And I guess I'm just going to say a few things that are inspired by what you guys have been talking about. One of them is something that I you might have heard me say before, someone might have heard me say before, but it's an important thing to me, and I think it's an important reflection on what they've been talking about, which is, at least in my opinion, it's part of the way Timothée bumps on the word performance. In my opinion, acting at the level that we're talking about tonight, acting isn't lying. I'm going to say that again. Acting is not lying. Acting is telling the truth. And thank you. It's a big misconception in my mind about what acting is, that acting is bullshitting or lying or putting it on. And at least with a camera aimed at you close up, that won't cut it. That just won't cut it. What someone's got to do is be there. And that's telling the truth. What you're seeing as Timothée talks is someone who can't help but tell you what he's thinking or feeling, even if it's, I don't know. The point is that there's a commitment in him to being real. And that's more important now at a time when everything is snarky and full of shit and postmodern and hardly anyone is sincere about fucking anything, that it's really important that earnestness and truthfulness get celebrated. And thank you, and thank you. My feelings about Timothée are real simple. We've been kind of glued together, working, trying to make this movie happen for 6 years. And maybe it is a beautiful accident or beautiful sense of destiny that it didn't happen until the right time. I do think it is kind of an historic level of preparation that Timothée had to prepare for this role, and I did see him grow and expand. And I watched him, everyone celebrates as well, they should, the miraculous nature of him just going from pretty much zero with a guitar to being able to powerfully render Bob Dylan songs on a stage or in a studio live in a way that is breathtaking. Yeah. But what also happened, and you'll correct me when you come up and speak, Timothée, if I'm wrong, but what also happened was that Timothée's process for getting into Bob was through the music. And so what was happening is he went through the mechanics of chords and strumming and how he played it and how he sang it, is there was something else magical happening, which is those words, the actual guy's words, were channeling through him for 6 years as he sang them. And he uses this term, which I love, called osmosis, that his process of learning how to be Bob was through a process of osmosis, which he, credits the songs being the first kind of part of that. And I always remember osmosis from biology class. It had something to do with plants. It seemed slow and kind of magical or something, but I looked it up today. Osmosis is the process by which solvent molecules move through a semi-permeable membrane from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution. The process occurs until the solute concentrations on both sides of the membrane are equal. It is such a perfect fucking description of the process you went through. Both sides of the membrane became equal. My goal making a movie like this is never, when I made Walk the Line, Joaquin Phoenix, I tell the story all the time. I've told it to Timmy, would come up to me once a week and go, tell me that thing. And I'd go, you're not Johnny Cash. And he'd go, thank you. And what that meant, what that was code for, was that we're not here to build a perfect Disney animatronic, perfect mimicry of the real person. There's actually footage and recordings. You want to hear a Bob Dylan record, they're right out there. You can get them. You want to see Bob Dylan, there's documentaries. We're doing something else, which is investigating shit that didn't get shot and didn't get recorded. Because we both know when Bob was getting shot by a documentary crew, he very well was performing himself because he knew he was on camera. We were after something that when there was no one watching, but I'm also after something else. I am after Timothée. I don't want to lose him because that's why I wanted to make the movie. He's why I wanted to make the movie. Finding him in that role was the reason we wanted to make that film. And in the last thing I'll talk about is just in the process of making the film, you'll notice there's kind of a sporty mentality that you'll hear from Timothée when he talks about his work. There's a kind of commitment. There's a kind of, it is all real. He's a player on a team. He is incredibly supportive of the crew, of everyone there. He is focused. He's trying to deliver for himself and for others. One example would just be, yes, he was playing live, but you'd think most of the time if I'm shooting him, yeah, okay, he's playing live. But when I'm shooting Ed Norton or Elle Fanning listening to him and he's behind the camera, well, he's not going to play live then. No, he did. He played live when I was shooting extras and you couldn't see him. He was playing, offering himself to the camera and to the others in the movie. And that's a kind of generosity of spirit that I also felt myself over the past 6 years, which is that he made it his job, or he was dedicated to the task of checking in with me. He might have been shooting Dune, he might have been shooting Wonka, he might have been anywhere, but I got texts and calls. I would get videos of where he was getting on the song. We would check in. I would read him a new scene I wrote. He would read it back with me. People get cynical about the way show business works, and you know, you can be, but this is not one of those examples. This is a real true heart who is really ambitious, who wants to do great things, who is committed to it, and who cherishes a kind of you couldn't find a more modern dude on one side, a more of an absolute emblem of his age, but at the same time, there's something very classical and very traditional and old school about Timothée. He is committed to the theatrical and a tradition of being connected to his director, to his writer, to the work, and finding them and staying glued to them and not journeying off in his own mental space, but staying glued to the people around him, his collaborators, his teammates who are making the movie with him. And that was, it's a really moving thing for me because it's something I've rarely seen at the level and for the longevity that we shared that process. And it's something I will remember all my life because I think it's also visible on the screen. And visible in all your work. Yes, please applause. So summing up my impromptu remarks would just be saying this is a real actor. This is not a liar. This is a truth-telling person. This is a person who makes it their mission, who understands the rectangle, who understands what I mean by the rectangle is the size of the shot. Where is the camera? How do I relate to it? How do I connect to everything else? There is an absolute genetic understanding in this young man of how to use all those elements to try and deliver to you some kind of indescribable, undefinable truth about what it is to be a human being and alive in the world. And as Josh was saying, I think this is only the beginning of a lot of gifts he's going to give us in the years to come. And it is saying that makes me incredibly proud and honored to be here tonight to deliver him the Santa Barbara Arlington Artist of the Year. Did I get it right?
All right. All right, well, thank you for this award. I'm deeply honored to receive this. I was here 7 years ago. I got a Virtuoso Award, and I've put a solid body of work between my experience then as a young man until now as a less young man. Not quite Josh Brolin. But thank you to Roger Durling for your propagation of this festival, for your constant support and stewardship of the arts. Thank you to Matthew Greenfield, David Greenbaum at Searchlight for your belief in this project. Perhaps the biggest thank you of all to James Mangold for your kind words, for your masterful hand in guiding this project to life over 5.5 years, and for your trust in unleashing me. And thank you to the incomparable Bob Dylan, an artist who left behind a body of work that has come to possess me like the Holy Spirit. In many ways, A Complete Unknown was a bridge to a time period where the soul of America made for fertile, artistic soil. In fact, a number of my projects in recent years have been born of the free thinking of the 1960s and 1970s. It seemed in this period of America, all you had to do was step outside and you'd come across a curious thinker, an optimism about society that had not yet been bludgeoned by the reality of the world. With this in mind, this project was an absolute blessing to relish in, start to finish. 5.5 years of inhabiting the thinker of the 1960s and getting to relay this passion to my peers in the run-up to this movie, like Josh and Stephen Henderson and Oscar Isaac, and then with the whole world upon the release of this film. It's been an absolute dream come true. I don't know how else to put it. I feel like I've gotten to be a bridge to one of the great thinkers of all time. You're only as vibrant as your surroundings, and I've been lucky in my come up to be surrounded by deep, passionate, and open thinkers like James Mangold and Josh Brolin, the work of Bob Dylan and James Baldwin. And as I grow, I seek to leave behind a body of work that can do the same for someone else one day. Thank you very much for this award. Let's segue into the conversation part of tonight's festivities, which I obviously wrote before we did this. Thank you so much.